I'm Miwa Messer. I'm the producer and host of Poured Over. And Quiara Alegría Hudes, I mean, yes, you know her from the Pulitzer Prize. You know her from the Toni Awards. You know her from lots of things. But, more importantly, there's a new novel. It's called The White Hot. I have needed this book. I have wanted this book. I didn't even know how much I needed and wanted this book until I read it. It is powerhouse, very short novel. And yes, we're going to come back to that, but an absolute powerhouse of a story. And my first thought was, yeah, we need more books about moms who leave. We don't have enough books about moms who leave. You might also know the memoir, My Broken Language. And if it sounds like we're talking about both books sort of simultaneously, we kind of are, because I will say Quiara does pull from her own life. This is not autofiction, though. Like, let's just be clear, this is not autofiction. You get to make things up. I'm so excited to see you. Thank you for making the time.
I'm excited to talk. I love the podcast and the conversations. They go deep.
Thank you. Thank you. The White Hot, though, this novel is so good. And I love April. And I haven't met anyone like April before. April feels like someone where I get all of her dimensionality. Whereas in other places, I would have met her as like, you know, mom who's stressed, or like angry teenager who's now an adult going, what just happened here? I really like this woman. And I'm wondering where she started for you.
Oh, I like her too. She was an energetic kind of dance partner for the years I was writing this book. You know, she is 26 years old. She lives in Philadelphia. She's never left the city. In fact, she had a child when she was 16, so she never really experienced what it was like to be a teenager. She's just living a very small life. But she's got a big intellect. She's got big emotions, and they get her into a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she can't quite, this novel starts when she can't quite fit herself into her small life anymore,
I was really surprised with, shall we say, the inciting event. I don't really want to spoil it because it's such a moment. And I really wasn't sure where it was going to go. And we've got multi-generational family situation, this living situation.
Yes.
And we have a setup. She sent a note to someone, and it's a little bit in the future. And then you flash back to this moment. And I thought, okay, she's really written herself into a box. Like, April has done a thing. Mm-hmm. Now where's April going? And then you surprise me again, because not only does April leave, and that's great, but where she goes at first, you send her to a national park. Or she sends herself. I mean, we'll talk about the writing process in a minute, but yeah. I was kind of like, okay, here's a woman who's never left her neighborhood really in Philadelphia, like never left Philadelphia per se. And here she is suddenly like in the woods without a coat, without a gear, without her bag, without, like, in the woods.
It's her first time. She's never been in the woods really. And she just knows where the Greyhound station is in Philadelphia and kind of power walks to it. She's pissed off. She's gotten in a fight around the dinner table with her family. And it's like, what bus can get me the heck out of here and take me the farthest? And so she goes to Western Pennsylvania, and there's a park, but no, like you said, she's wearing her work clothes. She's in gladiator sandals and walks for hours into the woods. So she's got blisters, the sequin blouse she wore to work, the skinny jeans she wore to work. They're not really going to protect her in the way that she needs protection for a stretch of days that she stays in the woods.
And the physicality, April's physicality in so many ways. Also kind of new terrain for a novel like this, right? Like, is this a domestic drama? Is this a family? What is happening here? And a lot of things are happening. But the idea that she is so in her body, and that this isn't just her sort of noodling through a to-do list. Like, she hasn't quite figured out what she's done or the decision she's made, but just the sheer physicality of her presence in the world and taking up that space is really a treat.
Yeah. The book in some ways takes place over 10 days. The main bulk of the book is a letter that she writes to her daughter. to describe, and we know this from the first few pages, right. It's not a spoiler, but she's describing, dear daughter, here's the 10 days after I left you.
Right.
And here's what happened. And so some of those 10 days take place in the woods. And when we're with April in the woods, she has so little experience, like life experience outside of her tiny bubble in her household, her very tiny domestic bubble. And she gets surprised because like her armpits start to smell.
Right.
I mean, it's the whole book isn't like super nasty or anything, but like her underwear starts to smell and she's like fascinated. She says, my body is a calendar. Like she is fascinated even by her own body. And in fact, it's like her whole adolescence happens in 10 days when she's 26 years old. And that's how we get to know her, So she's in the woods, really, yeah, like you said, discovering her smells. She discovers sensuality, even though she admits to her daughter in this letter that the book is the letter to her daughter. And she admits it's promiscuous. Like there's almost a vibe that when she was a teenager hooking up a lot, there's almost like it was like a self-harm situation.
Right.
But now in these 10 days, there's going to be sensuality. She's never had that,
right.
So yeah, it's April and her body and her soul. That's what it is.
Well, at one point too, she says, I didn't get time. She's speaking to her daughter's father, in fact, and she's like, you got time. You got time and you have this thing now and you built this thing and I didn't get time. And that might be one of the truest things I've ever heard a character in a novel say. Like, you got the things that go with time, right? And it encompasses class, it encompasses privilege. And yet this is a guy who basically got out of their neck of the woods in Philadelphia because his family got him out after he got her pregnant.
Yeah, and they were both high schoolers.
Right. So she stays behind. He gets out. Turns out to be an interesting dude.
Yeah. We meet him later in the book, and it's funny how, at least even when I was writing it, I didn't even clock. The dad got off really scot-free here. It's a whole big deal that mom runs, but really they were both 16 years old. They were both in high school, pregnant, and his family was like, ship him off to an uncle in Jersey.
Yeah.
This is not going to stop his future.
Right.
And indeed, he graduates high school. He graduates college. Two things he never got to do.
Right.
She was doing the labor that he left her with. He has a career.
Yeah.
He has a stable family. And really, that's a nod to, I think part of what inspired this book was me realizing, we love it when men leave. Don Draper from Mad Men, he leaves. He's sexy for leaving, right?
Right.
Siddhartha leaves his newborn baby and his wife. He becomes the Buddha. When a mom leaves, it's a different narrative. And so that's what I'm grappling with here.
It's a different narrative. And it's also, if we're talking about an individual's desires, right, in a community, because April is very much a part of her community. She is very much the product of this very matrilineal setup, right? And her family loves her. She loves her family, but they kind of don't get her. She's not, it makes me think a little bit of some of what you've done in My Broken Language, right? Where it's like, how do you figure out where you fit? What is your identity? Does the family come first? Does the community come first? Where do I fit? And part of what April's been wrestling with is the fact that she doesn't genuinely know where she fits into this sort of larger picture, or how she fits, and what she genuinely wants, because she's just like, well, this is it. This is my world.
She's the first generation born here, right? Her mother and her grandmother. It's 4 generations in their one household. It's all female. And her mother and her grandmother were born in Puerto Rico, and they came, and April was born here. And there's a moment early on where they're fighting around the dinner table. There's a mess on the floor. There's like is on the floor, and they're so ill-equipped to deal with their anger.
Right.
They have no tools for this. And what does her abuela do when they're all screaming stuff? Her abuela grabs the broom and starts sweeping. And it
Yeah.
kind of becomes this grotesque domestic comedy because it's very hard to sweep cooked rice off a floor,
Yep.
right? It kind of globs and gets like gummy and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
people realizes like they've been sweeping their full selves. They've been sweeping their desires, their
Mm.
angers under the rug for
Yeah.
generations. And it's this moment she realizes my daughter's about to inherit that freaking broom.
Yep.
Don't want my daughter to inherit that broom, you know? And so, yes, they love each other, but change is also, it has to happen. There's cycles that need to be broken.
I think of April's behavior as really selfless, even
Mm,
though she has to put herself first in this particular situation. Like she has to make a decision. No one else is going to make this decision. No one is coming to save her. And I think there are going to be other readers who may have a different feeling about that decision. And it exactly goes back to what you were saying about, when men leave, it's a totally different situation. It's acceptable. It's fine. It's what we do, right? You ride out into the Western Front and you go and do a thing. But women aren't supposed to leave.
And I think it also depends on how we position ourselves with the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 points of view in this book. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes up a lot more airtime, but we're aware that there's two. So there's April's point of view. She's
Yep.
writing the letter, but we get to know Noelle, her daughter, early on. And so are we the daughter or the mother as we read this book? And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm both. I am a daughter, I am a mother. So I
Mm-hmm.
read it both ways. My first two readers of the first draft of this book
Mm-hmm.
were my husband and my 18-year-old daughter. I was very curious to
Oh.
see because I leave it open. I'm not
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the reader, here's whose side you should be on.
Yep.
So I said to them, what do you think of what she did? Was it
Mm-hmm.
okay? My husband was adamant, like no gray area. She saved her daughter
Right.
by letting her go.
Yep.
And my daughter was like, whoa, 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 hold on a second. And the kids have a speak up here, you know. So I think there's a gendered thing, but I think it's generational too, as to do you identify still as the child or do you identify more as the parent?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see the generational piece of it. I really can. But I'm sticking to my side of she did the right thing. I'm totally sticking to. There is though a musicality too, and there's some moments. There's some moments when she meets Kamal and he asks her to do a thing, and but there's still the way you write, even if the situation is unexpected, um, is just a wonder. It is. And I don't know how much of that comes from your playwriting background because your dialogue is amazing. But also, you were trained as a musician before you started studying playwriting and working as a playwright. So it feels to me like this novel is in some ways the intersection of what came before, even though neither of them are technically prose writing.
I feel very fortunate to have studied with a fantastic playwright named Paula
Mm-hmm.
Vo, and she taught me a lot about structure and form. And even more, she just taught me about this is what it looks like to live as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
I really think my truest writing training was being a musician. I played piano all my life. I composed. And first of all, you learn how to spend a lot of time alone,
Right.
which is great. But the thing that I love about music that I think does really get into my writing is
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't literally mean anything. It kind of makes you realize that, I mean, maybe this is heretical for a writer to say, but
Mm.
me is overrated. Feeling, I want to feel like when I
Right.
play music, when I listen to music, I feel alive.
Right.
And I approach my writing that way. And maybe I even choose projects. Maybe I like this book and chose to write this book the way I did because I'm not interested in telling someone how to feel about it. I might not even know how I feel about it myself, but I want to feel. I want to be there, you know? Like an album. I want it to read like an
Mm.
album where there's wild, crazy drum solos, but also like slow, kind of sexy melodies too, a whole
Mm.
journey of an album.
Charles Mingus pops up in the second section of this book, and I was really happy to see that. And there was a little Hendrix too, if I remember correctly. I love having that soundtrack in the background, and actually started re-listening to a bunch of Mingus very specifically while I was prepping for this interview, because it does exactly what you're talking about. And there are pieces of Mingus's work that I know when I hear them and I'm like, oh, right, that's Mingus. But I couldn't necessarily tell you the title of the song, but I just know, and I'm like, oh, right, yeah, this is great. And you just settle in, and by the time you know it, like 3 hours have passed. And you're like, oh, right, maybe I should go do another thing. I mean, time stops with music, right? Like you can absolutely stop time.
The Mingus I hadn't listened to Mingus for a long time also. When I reconnected with it for this book, it was wild because there's a wildness about his spirit. He's such a rebellious spirit. You can feel he's angry. He's critiquing culture. He's critiquing the United States of America. And it's beautiful too. I mean, there's so much sonic immersion in his music. And so I put April in those shoes. That's that feeling when like the right music finds you at the right time in your life.
Yeah.
You know, I put April in those shoes. She's hearing jazz for the first time, and she's hearing how big his feelings are, how big his anger is, how big his expression is. And she's going, God, you know, when I was in high school, I wish they'd just played this music for me instead of sending me to detention all the time.
Right.
I could hear there was a way to handle my frustrations with dignity.
Yeah.
You know, with beauty. But she's just learning that lesson a little too late.
Yeah, but at least she gets to learn it. I mean, that's, you know, you can have a coming of age story that has a 26-year-old at its heart. You can have a coming of age story with a 60-year-old at its heart. I mean, I think we've sort of co-opted it for stories about teenagers getting their acts together, but in the grand scheme of things, and I think we've all met those people in real life too, where you're just like, you know, maybe you're going to figure it out. You could figure it out before you're 80. Who knows?
Yeah, it's kind of a parallel coming of age in that we see April come of age later than one expects. But she also writes this letter to her daughter and sends it to her daughter when her daughter turns 18. And they haven't seen each other in a long time. And so the daughter doesn't expect to get home from school, see this handwriting on a big manila envelope. It's like, oh my God, I haven't seen this writing in so many years. This is Mom. I haven't seen Mom in years. And the daughter's coming of age too. And really, this is why the mother's sending the letter now. It's like, you know, she doesn't even apologize for having left her, because I think she feels like there would be something manipulative in that. Like, you don't have to forgive me. But I would like, now that you're a young woman, I would like you to learn from some of these experiences I had. So let me tell you about them. Don't forgive me. Just hear me out for a sec.
Well, I mean, April does blow up some boundaries across the course of the novel. And this is what, 200, not even 200 pages, if I remember correctly. It's a very tightly written novel. Yeah, okay, 164 pages in the galley. Really satisfying single read if that's what you want, but also, because I've read it twice now, and the first time was like straight through, and then you go back, and of course you're reading differently when you're prepping for an interview, but super satisfying to see April come up across moments and people and situations where she's just like, I don't have a rule book. I don't care. I'm just going to trust my gut. And that's really rare, I think, I don't want to limit it to women, because I think it's something that can happen for fictional characters and certainly happens in real life too. But the idea that she's like, yep, I'm messy and I'm here and I know that I've had responses in the past that may not serve me well now. And yet, right? It's, she's a really original woman. I don't feel like I've met someone like her before, and I read a lot. I don't feel like I've read someone like her before. Did you know when you had her voice? I mean, when you sat down, because you've talked about writing plays on deadlines, you have talked about, you know, turning around essays quickly. You've also written screenplays, and all of those forms are very different and they're stripped down. I mean, essentially, you know, it's an entirely different art form. When you were writing The White Hot, when did you know that you had April's voice?
Wow. I mean, she's loud.
Yeah.
She's and I almost wasn't able to write in a third person.
Hmm.
It's why it became a letter because
Right.
her voice was so loud, it almost had to crowd out the other voices.
Hmm.
So we, the reader, kind of put ourselves in the shoes of the other voices. I wanted her to be really spiky.
Hmm.
I wanted her to be really messy, to have a kind of sharp sense of humor. Um, so I discovered it just as I went through.
Right.
Yeah. And then she was just loud in my ears, you know, and she also, I wanted her to get in trouble.
Yeah.
I think I was, listen, I'm the oldest daughter. Okay. I'm the first generation born here. I'm the
Right.
oldest. I have spent my life being dutiful,
Yep.
trying to be the good girl.
Hmm.
I wanted to live in someone else's shoes. This is
Right.
not opposition. This is me saying,
Right.
what did it feel like
Yep.
to be the younger sibling who's like, she's not in the book a younger sibling, but just to
Hmm.
be the one who's breaking the rules, who's talking back,
Hmm.
you know. And it felt good. I have to say, it felt really good.
Yeah.
And then
First.
she feels ashamed afterwards sometimes when she gets in these schoolyard fights and yeah, this kind of heat and anger blazes through her, but then she feels quite ashamed. There's an after experience too.
But she does evolve. I mean, she gets a real arc in the 10 days. She gets a genuine arc. And also, first daughter energy is real. It is totally real. Like the whole first daughter syndrome, it is so real. So, so real. But April really does. I mean, I remember thinking the first time I was like, oh, great, this is going to be one of those compressed narratives, right? Like, obviously, this can't go on. Like, she's not going to live in the park for like a year. And I'm like, okay, so where are we going? Where are we going? And I love a compressed narrative because also the pressure is on not just the characters and the story, but also on the person writing the story, right? Like, how are you going to keep me in this world? Because already you've thrown me into a place where I'm like, oh, okay. Like, mom's left, we're in the woods. Now she meets this guy. Okay. And it just, the momentum keeps pushing forward. And then suddenly it's like, wait a minute. She's cleaning apple cores and pieces of apple rind off of a table that is not hers somewhere else. And it's those little details, the accumulation of those little details where I'm like, oh, all right.
I had a kind of guideline or model that I was
Yeah.
working, which was the book Siddhartha.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, a classic assigned high school reading book. I
Yep.
read it in high school, as did April. And I remember reading it. And then Siddhartha, if for those who haven't read it, it's a novelization. It's basically the Buddha story.
Right.
It's a novelization of that. And I remember reading it in high school, and it's beautiful. And I wanted to take a spiritual quest, and I wanted to get enlightened just like Siddhartha.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking, gosh, I wish my mom could like leave us behind for a minute and like stop doing the dishes right now and like go
Mm-hmm.
find God. My mom was a very spiritual woman.
Right.
She had a spiritual gift. Like I wish that she didn't have to find God like in the Pathmark while she was grocery shopping for us.
Right.
You know, and so I gave April that journey and I could kind of follow Siddhartha. So I had a little bit of a structure. And because she has that big energy, I knew it just had to feel like you're being shot out of a cannon. And like you say, you can only sustain that for so long. And in
Right.
fact, I couldn't even sustain that for a short book. I could only sustain that for about 40 pages or so. And then I needed to go to a quieter place.
Right.
You know, she needed to find her own version of enlightenment, just like Siddhartha does at the end of that book. But she's still a woman in the real world. And that does come with a cost. That cost tracks with her in
It definitely does, but I was rooting for her. There is that moment with the Mercedes where I laughed a little bit. I was like, "Oh dear, this is no good is going to come of this." And yet, we were fine, and I was delighted that we were fine. Um, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But I I wanted her to find her place. I didn't want this to be one of those narratives where it's like you leave your family behind, you leave your community behind. Like, yeah, she ends up, we're not, I mean, I should stay away from the end. I didn't want this to be one of those, I had to leave, otherwise I wouldn't be able to have a life at all kind of thing. I feel like in a lot of, I don't want to call it immigrant stories. I don't want to call it diaspora stories. I just like, why do we have to choose, right? Like, why do you have to leave everything behind in order to have the next thing, right? And I feel like April's standing in a place where she could do either, right? Like, she doesn't have to give everything up.
It's tricky. She needs role models outside of what she's seen. She needs guideposts. And
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a scene where she goes to a library, says to a librarian,
Mm-hmm.
I need role models.
Right.
This librarian points her towards Jamaica Kincaid, points her
Mm-hmm.
to Toni Morrison, and says, hey, women can be wretched. Women
Right.
can be pariahs.
Mm-hmm.
A woman's life can be an experiment in agency.
Right.
There can still be value there. And so it's just hinted at,
Mm-hmm.
that scene has a very light touch, but I want April's life to be like the pariahs in Sula, like the
Mm-hmm.
pariahs Jamaica Kincaid's in Autobiography of My Mother, the
Oh
woman
yeah.
self-aborts, and she's got this incredible self-possession, and it's beautiful and it's
Mm-hmm.
shocking.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is shocking to see a woman with self-possession, at least to me still, as a 48-year-old, independent, successful writer woman, I still am surprised by that. And I wanted to live that surprise as I wrote
Mm-hmm.
April.
Yeah, I just really I was so pleasantly surprised by all of her. And I think I just needed her to be as original as she is on the page. And it's just like, keep surprising me and keep sort of challenging me. And I mean, there are some decisions she makes, not the original decision where she gets on the bus, but there are a couple of decisions she makes where I'm like, huh, not sure I would have done that, but I'm totally willing to see how this plays out.
Well, there's also the fun element, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
consciously writing an anti-hero.
Yeah.
And so there's something fun in that, where it becomes a game of like, how far can I push the readers? Can she break into a home? Can
Yep.
she steal a car?
Yep.
There's some other things I won't even mention.
Yeah.
Readers still in part root for her, even if they're cringing and going, April, no, don't do that.
I wanted her to get away with it. I just wanted her to get away with everything. That's what I was. I It felt a little bit like a caper in some ways because it was, where was she leading us? Where were we going? Where was the story going? But the stakes obviously were higher, so I don't want to sound flip about it, but there's an energy to the narrative that, again, like you don't necessarily get in a story of domestic disturbance, right? Like this is a mother who's made a decision that ultimately I think is best for her child. But again, I could be alone in that. I don't know. But the idea that she is impulsive and only impulsive, I think, is not fully. I think she's more than just impulsive. I think she genuinely is trying to figure out what she doesn't know. And that's kind of exciting to see because sometimes you get an anti hero and you're like, oh, well, they're fun to read. But April's trying to learn. She's not just reacting all the time.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, she is impulsive,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also intuitive, and there's a difference there. And I think the distinction is important here. learning to listen. I mean, she's raised with this mother and this grandmother who I think she realized, she doesn't have words for this, but she just senses they're disconnected from their impulses, their instincts. She remembers her grandmother used to be a kind of backyard gardener,
Right.
right? They would have pots and pots of plants and flowers that they would bring in for the winter, and then they'd bring them back out when the weather got warmer. And over the years, those potted plants died, and
Right.
her uncle let them die. She saw how the city hardened them and disconnected them from their softness, from their natural instincts. And we get to see April connect with her natural instincts, which I take pleasure in, that you had mentioned earlier about it being so much about April's body. And there's another moment when she remembers having a child, and it's very subtle. It's implied that it was like a highly medicalized. So she talks about one nurse who, when she was very weak and very kind of laid bare, this nurse came and gave her a bath. And being around a woman who was working from instinct like that, who was that connected to what can't be spoken, but what can be felt between people. I think that's what April's on this quest for. She's running, hopping a bus, she's going to a park, she's breaking into a house, she's stealing a car, she's sleeping in a hammock in someone's backyard in search of her own instincts.
I think her instincts are better than she's been given credit for, though. I think there is that one teacher who recognizes and wants to help. And it's just like, there is so much potential here. There is so much potential here. So it's not the idea of her grandmother also and her mother losing contact with their own interior lives, right? Because of the city and what have you. I mean, part of me wonders if that's really a generational marker, because they have a before and after for moving, whereas April really doesn't, right? Like, April is a kid from Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is a huge part of all of your work, which I love. It's a city I'm very fond of. It feels like Philadelphia is for you, though, what Pittsburgh is for August Wilson. And I don't know if I'm overstepping there, but I do feel like it's part of not just the characters, but the narrative as a whole.
Yeah, I was born and raised there. And first of all, the history. I mean, anytime they would break ground on a new building in Center City, there would be interesting news stories about what they uncovered, the pottery, the bones, unmarked graves. You would walk through Philadelphia and you'd know history is underfoot. What are the buried histories? What are the untold histories? And so there was that sense of being now and then that even got me excited as a teenager. And also, Philly is a very historically black and white city. And I was in this little pocket where my family didn't fit that. We were Puerto Rican, and so there was something interesting there about kind of like being a satellite around these bigger suns, that I think it got my creative juices flowing.
Yeah, no, I get that. Because you've talked about how storytelling for you is also a way of preserving culture. I mean, that's part of what drove My Broken Languages, which is very much about Philadelphia as much as it is about your family. But I love this idea that you have to tell the stories, right? I think it was your mother who said, well, your grandmother's not doing well. You really need to actually start being a writer. And I love the idea that your mom, the community activist, was like, go do a thing. And you were like, well, actually, that's not a terrible idea. You started writing very young, though. You won an essay contest when you were a teenager. You won a playwriting contest when you were a teenager. Like, I think you had a plan. I really think you had a plan.
Plan maybe not, but certainly just an absolute obsession with writing. I loved writing, like a kid would play with Barbies or G.I. Joe. That to me was play. I remember that essay. I forgot that I about that essay. There's one in My Broken Language. So there's one about, the cost and the reality of AIDS in our opportunities. But I was remembering another one. I actually
Oh.
I wrote another essay. See,
Oh.
my eldest daughter. I in sophomore year of high school, an essay about and it's a little bit in my broken language too.
Yeah.
My younger sister being fat shamed.
Oh, wow.
Trying to help her kind of reclaim her body narrative.
Yep.
I'm talking when she's 5 years old here,
Right.
you know? So I think I always wanted to tell people the world as I saw it because I loved being on the receiving end. I was the ultimate eavesdropper. I loved hearing people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
I love going to a bar. Okay to have a drink, yeah, but really to hear how do people talk? How do they put together sentences?
Right.
Their own music. It's fascinating to me.
Well, and also, I mean, for want of a better phrase, right, code switching is something that is and has been part and parcel of your experience of the world since minute one. I mean, you're speaking Spanish at home with your mother, and your first language is still English, and your dad was not a Spanish speaker, and all of this sounds very familiar, just insert a different language. But, you know, it's watching you navigate that experience in my broken language. And then years later, we get the white hot. I'm just kind of like, oh, someone's been taking notes about humanity for a really long time. And then I go back and I'm doing the research and I'm like, you've been doing this since time started. You did take a break from writing plays though in 2018 because the landscape was just, it sounds unpleasant. It sounds really limited. It sounds like it wasn't going to help you grow. And this is after you'd won the Pulitzer Prize. You have the Eliot cycle of plays, and the second one is the one that won the Pulitzer. The Toni came later. I'm sorry, In the Heights was what year? 19?
It was 2009. Yeah, the Toni was already there.
Okay, so you were an award-winning playwright, and you had to take a step back from a community and a form of work that you love. And as a result, we do have the memoir, we do have this novel. Are you feeling reconnected to playwriting at this point, or are you just going to keep working in all of the different formats? Because why not? But
it's nice, the kind of the tool belt expanding a little bit. So I already am thinking about my next novel, but I'm also writing my next play.
Okay.
And it's being 48, I have to proselytize. Like
Okay.
Age as a woman, I highly recommend it to everyone out there. Because you learn more, you know. So now I understand what is it that makes a play tick versus I'm learning what is it that makes a novel tick.
Right.
And they're really different.
Yeah.
And also, what is the marketplace that those things are situated in? They go out to very different people, a play and a book. And I love that. I want to do it all.
Yeah. I would like you to keep doing it all. Thank you very much. But, you know, you're the one who's doing the work. But I want to come back to the differences between writing plays and writing long form prose. I'm gonna ask you to sort of think about it, because the memoir and the novel sit together, even though, you know, they're not exactly, let's call them siblings. Can we call them siblings? But how does the work change for you? I mean, how do you start when you know, or do you know when you're sitting down to write a play that that's what it's going to be? Or is it just simply you're starting with the idea and then it sort of takes shape? Is it the story more than the format that matters?
It's hard for me to pull the different threads apart, but I can say that even having this conversation, I haven't thought this, but I'm observing now, okay, the two books, the memoir and this new novel, they're dealing with themes of spirituality in a much more straight ahead way. Now, those themes have always been there in my work, but it's a little trickier on a stage because you have people coming in, sitting in an audience. One of them might be profoundly spiritual. One of them might be profoundly religious. One of them might be totally atheist.
Right.
How are you going to show a spiritual experience on a stage? And how's it going to position those different audience members. I just feel everyone's skepticism coming out, or like people getting defensive about their own spiritual world. Whereas the thing that I could do, because on the stage you're showing behavior, you're showing something that's actually happening, even if it's implied or pretend. It's something that happens. A book isn't something that happens. It's something that is experienced. A character experiences things that happen. And so as long as we're in April's point of view, it's okay if she has a spiritual experience, because there's nothing that says that the reader has to share that point of view. You know, so it's been very fun getting to dig in a little bit more to these spiritual themes in a book than I had the opportunity to on stage. You know, that's just one of many things. But that internal experience to explore it, the books let me go there in a way that the theater doesn't.
I mean, the interiority of a novel, and I'm going to stick to novels for a second, but like the interiority of a novel and the things that you can do that you really can't, even in a short story, right? Like a short story is a moment. Terrific. I'm a huge fan of short stories, but there's something to be said for being able to sit with the emotion that comes, right? Like The White Hot it's a roller coaster, and it is really, really satisfying. There's a novel that came out last year called The Most, and by Jessica Anthony, and it's similarly short, but it's one of these mid-century American, like Cheever Updike kind of thing. And it basically, a woman gets into a swimming pool and refuses to get out, and in the course of 176 pages we find out why she won't get out of the pool. And it makes me think of April in her, you can't make me, I am going to do this as I need to. And it feels rebellious in a way that, for me as a reader, was exactly what I needed. But I think still is going to make some people kind of, I don't know. I'm curious to see what the larger response is going to be outside of me. I'm hoping people understand April the way I understand April.
I mean, I wrote in a certain level of, I'm really inviting, you know, judge her.
Yeah.
You know, throw a stone. Go ahead and throw a stone. And I put that in there. And that actually, even I said it more righteously than I think it is in the book. She has to be self-possessed, and she has to stand by her life choices. And she learns to do that over the course of this book. And that lesson comes with tremendous cost. She loses her daughter.
Right.
Maybe saves her daughter in doing that. But if she could do that, it's okay if the reader's like, you're terrible, you know, because she can own up to her own actions. And so yeah, I think she's ready for some mixed responses from readers. I am ready for that. I welcome that.
I still think it's her choice to make. I will stand on that hill with my flag and say, one way or another, it's absolutely her choice to make. Can we also talk about other literary influences for just a second? Because I know we're bumping up against time. Paula Vogel, obviously, huge influence on you. I feel like there is some August Wilson, separate from location things, but the spirituality and certainly this digging into a community. Right. I mean, it's been a long time since I've read the entire cycle at the same time. But he's a playwright that I dip back into. For sense of place, for sense of community, you know, I think of John Edgar Wideman too when I think of August Wilson. But who are some of the writers that helped get you to where you are now?
I love that you bring up August Wilson, because even though this isn't a play, he's in there. He's in there. Because for one thing, she takes the Greyhound to Pittsburgh. So of course I'm like, okay, hi August Wilson. I see the Greyhound bus window. So she has to find clean drinking water when she gets to Ohio, which is the name of the state park she goes to. And so she finds a creek where it looks like the water is running, and she sips a little bit of it, and then she waits a few hours to see if it makes her sick.
Right.
And it doesn't. So she goes back and drinks there. And she says in the pages that it tastes, I can't remember, it tastes like a shiny nickel or something like that. It tastes like a shiny coin.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's August Wilson, you know, shining like new money from Joe Turner's Come and Gone. So August Wilson's actually in there, and I'm very grateful for the work that he did, his century cycle. Who else is in there? I mean, so I had these two big reading moments in my life.
Yep.
When I was in high school, and I first encountered American literature. That was big. That was big. You know, I first encountered Black literature. I first encountered queer literature. It was many, many years until I encountered actually like Puerto Rican and Latino literature. So this was a precursor to me. You know, the books that they're banning today, these are the books that are giving me agency as I'm developing my selfhood and my awareness of this nation. But the other big reading moment I had in my life was actually while writing The White Hot.
Okay.
It was a hard moment in my life because I was taking care of a loved one who was not well. And so kind of that caretaking, it lasted years. It brought me pretty low. It was very difficult. And I didn't have the capacity to do much. And I was reading. And it's like the universe conspired to deliver me this syllabus.
Yeah.
This is when I first read Jamaica Kincaid.
Oh, I just did a big reread of all of her work, and it sings. It just, Annie John, Autobiography of My Mother.
She sees life so clearly and describes it so clearly. And that in and of itself is very hard to do. It was when I first read Sula. It's when I first read Elena Ferrante, and I just became a completist. So I think in terms of literary influences, there's deep ones like August Wilson you mentioned, but then there's these recent ones. I think Elena Ferrante is very much in there.
Days of Abandonment, yes.
Days of Abandonment.
I'm talking more about the energy of the book and the narrator's sort of, I mean, when she has to break back into the house, you know what I'm talking about. That's my favorite Ferrante by far, is Days of Abandonment.
I mean, that one is really intense. You like an intense book.
I do. I really do. I like unpredictability. I don't need to necessarily love a narrator or main character, but I do need to be invested in the arc. I need to know that there is a possibility for maybe a second chance or half a second chance, or, you know. I think too, fiction gives us a way to play with ideas. And exactly as you were saying, it's like, well, I grew up a certain way and I was the well-behaved first daughter and all this, and I just wanted to act out a little bit on the page. But what we get is art. It's not like a laundry list of goofiness. We get art because you wanted to experiment with a different point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I guess I know my place right now in life, which is to keep writing, and I love it, and I feel really clear about that. But creating April, certainly, it lets me live another life. It lets me try on a different pair of shoes. And April in particular, she really saved me. As I mentioned, I was this caretaking stuff. It was really hard. And with her, I could go as far as I wanted. And so I didn't even buckle my seatbelt. I just sat next to her and I said, let's go.
Okay. You know, that actually sounds like the perfect place to end, because you did also tell us you're thinking about the next novel. So that counts as the next project, right?
Yes.
All right. So this is where I say thank you so much, Quiara Alegría Hudes. I am so excited that The White Hot is out, but I really also hope people come to My Broken Language if they haven't already. So thank you again.
Thanks. I'll be listening for your future episodes.
Thank you for listening. Poured Over is a Barnes & Noble production. To help other readers find us, please rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts.